semester. I worked my way through UCLA. So all of the things that we are, the immigration, education, race, how do you bring that together so that there is this understanding that we're all talking about the same thing? That we're all talking about the right of a human being to be able to pursue happiness. And once you can do that, it not only prevents the splits that will inevitably occur when black people, I don't have a job, and you want to let in another 10 million people. Instead of saying, these are potential allies that we have. So I'm sure you've given some thought to these kinds of things, because in some ways, young people are at the heart of all of that.
No soft pitches. Okay. Before I answer that question, let me add some qualifiers. So yes, it is absolutely necessary, if we're really serious about winning, to build alignment between movements that have the most potential to open up new opportunities. But there's some stuff that gets in the way. Yeah. So one, I think, and this is something that we grapple with in terms of Black Lives Matter, and going back to your last question about how do we understand the kind of new wave of a long tradition of Black freedom movements in the context of the globe. And one of the things that I think I would offer as a challenge to bringing these movements together is that in some ways we perpetuate some of the same dynamics that we are trying to undo. Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that the Dreamers movement is incredibly important. I think one challenge that the Dreamers face is that question of what is the actual transformative vision. So there's been lots of splits in the Dreamer movement, as I understand it. One of which has kind of pursued, access to military service as a way to access citizenship. Another one, right, I think is a language that sometimes is very much steeped in anti-Blackness. Here's what I mean by that. The notion that we're not criminals. The notion that we pay taxes, right? The notion that we do work that nobody else wants to do. Those are narratives that are steeped in anti-Blackness, and that's not to say that the Dreamers are anti-Black. It's to say that what folks are doing is trying to pick up narratives that will galvanize people in the direction that they want to go, which is smart. The challenge to it is that it prohibits deep, authentic solidarity. Because in response, what we say is, well, who are criminals? And when we talk about criminals in this country, what are the images that get conjured up? It's us, right? When we talk about taxes, who pays taxes? I mean, that's really in the context of a narrative that says that Black people are siphoning off the system. And then when we talk about employment, right? And this narrative that we sometimes hear from Black folks that says, well, they're taking our jobs. And then other folks are saying, well, we're doing the work nobody else wants to do. Those two things are in deep conflict and are kind of void of a historical context in which both are actually somewhat true, but not for the reasons that we're identifying, right? So there's one. And I think in order for us to build build the level of coordination amongst these movements, we have to tell each other the truth. Yeah? And one thing that is truth that we do need to just hash out is like, what's true about some of the experiences that folks have? Because what we do, I think, is we rush to, well, don't say that. That's not, we're all trying to get along, and it's like, cool, but here's what imperialism does, right? Here's what capitalism does. It creates neoliberalism. It has created situations where Black folks can't work, where Black folks have largely been dislocated from a formalized economy, right? Doesn't mean Black people are lazy. It means there are a whole set of political and economic conditions that have kind of created a dynamic where employment is fleeting for Black folks, and and now the new basis of the service economy is immigrant labor and exploitable immigrant labor. Yeah. The other thing that I feel like is just important to kind of pull apart here a little bit. I think if we could get into a whole set of conversations around citizenship, and I do actually think that that is where there's a lot of potential of alignment between Black folks and undocumented immigrants. Because Black folks, even as quote unquote citizens of this nation, don't really have access to the promise of citizenship that other people do. Yeah. So there's lots to get into there, but we don't have too much time. Where I do think that we can come together and where we're trying to test some stuff and have some fun with some things, especially with the folks from Not One More. We're about to launch a new kind of political vehicle like BLM called Mi Gente, so look out for that, is around this question of criminalization, right? And how is it that we're criminalizing bodies, people? Yeah, and is that a place where we can come together, right? Fighting back against regressive laws that penalize either people's movement, right? Or also penalize the ways in which people are forced to survive, yeah? When we talk about the prison system and we talk about the criminal system and who's in prisons and jails in this country, and we talk about how we are criminalizing everything to the degree that we have more than 2.5 million people in cages, right? And 1 million of those people are Black. And the fastest growing population in prisons and jails are women, Black women, right? There's lots of ways to connect in there.
He probably knows already.
Yeah.
Just I mean.
So this is why we get to have a conversation. Next time you could be up here.
Thanks.
Last thing I just want to offer is